Hello and welcome to another edition of Premier League Predictions with myself, Matthew Christ, and four-time Premier League winner next to me, Brian McClair. Brian, we're back. Are you ready and willing and able to go for another week of Premier League action?
Of course I am, yeah. And news for me this week in that a venerable coach of one of the teams that we're talking about today has outed me as the worst trainer in his tenure as a manager. So that's the I think maybe an accolade, although it would have been better if the article had been written that I was the best runner during the matches rather than the worst trainer. But you have no control over these particular things. But when it comes to people making videos, as we have several pieces of evidence that having had things lifted from our lovely tete-a-tetes as we've been wandering through this very interesting Premier League season.
Well, there's a teaser if we ever needed one. We'll come to that. But first of all, we've got a bit of a Brucey bonus this week, because on Wednesday we've got the Master of Liverpool travelling to Villa Park to face Aston Villa.
Well, this game's been rearranged because Liverpool are in the League Cup final. Both coaches are upset with the Premier League because they've decided to schedule the game for this week because both teams have got a number of games coming up, including the European competitions that they've done very well in so far. Liverpool are still unbeaten away in the Premier League. In the last 7 fixtures, this has produced 33 goals. With Liverpool scoring at least twice in each game. Villa have only won one of their last 14 Premier League games against Liverpool. Ollie Watkins scored 5 in his first 5 appearances, but he hasn't scored any in the last 4. Villa 1, Liverpool 3.
Wow, what a statement of intent that would be. It's a big week for Liverpool, as we'll come on to it. They've got Villa away and City away, and if they come through that with results like that, then I think it could be game over for Arsenal. But we will see. We'll come to Arsenal in a moment. But we're going to move on to the Friday night game this week, which is Leicester versus Brentford.
Well, Leicester versus Brentford. I read a very interesting thing that Leicester and their management team, or their technical team, missed the registration deadline to sign a player that would have perhaps bolstered a squad that's low in confidence, and they missed the deadline by, well, it doesn't really matter how much you missed it by, but the report said it was 14 seconds, so it must have been very painful for all the people involved, and maybe more particular for Ruud van Nistelrooy, who would be hoping that he could have added to another player. But they haven't. There's been 21 games since they've had a clean sheet. Brentford have now won their last 3 away games, which is the most they've managed in their tenure in the Premier League. Don't think they're going to make it 4 though. Leicester 1, Brentford 1.
Okay, valuable point that would be for Leicester, should that happen. On to Saturday, and it's a club you've been very complimentary about this season, in Everton, home to a club that you haven't been anywhere near as complimentary about this season, Manchester United.
Well, we could talk about this fixture for a long time, Matthew, because there's so many issues surrounding it. Everton, after the recent results, are now find themselves above Manchester United, which very, very few Evertonians, I think, would have expected that going back 6 or 7 games ago. Everton have only managed 15 goals in their first 20 games, but they've scored 12 in the last 5, 13 points from 6 games. Moyes has turned them around and doing a remarkable job. And of course, being an ex-Manchester United manager, irrespective of the success he may or may not have had, you'll always want to beat the teams that you managed previously, and I think that he'll be doing everything he can to get a positive result in this fixture. I read that United had to travel by bus to London before they played Tottenham, and an inferior bus, actually. I don't know exactly what an inferior bus was Matthew, but maybe that was one of the excuses that people were waiting to use for another defeat in the Premier League.
Inferior bus or inferior coach?
I don't know. That's the coach that they normally use. Had already been sent to London to transport them from the hotel to the games, because there's all sorts of little things now with teams where they're looking to reduce any. They're trying to look for marginal gains. I think marginal gains are one of them. Is the bus being the bus that they use all the time, the superior bus being available to take them actually from their dwelling to the stadium. You'll see that European teams, so both Madrid and Munich, sent their buses over to the UK so that they would be able to do the same thing, to pick up their players and take them to the Celtic Park in the Etihad. United have got several injuries and they've had illness. I'm wondering what they're doing in training if they end up with 3 players getting knocks in training, which put them out of the fixture, which meant that nearly all the players that were on the bench against Spurs had never actually made an appearance for Manchester United. And they had to recall Casemiro. And I've got a lot of sympathy for him in that particular game, because he hadn't played for a number of games and not in favour with Amorim. See Paul Scholes think that they need a completely new spine, a goalkeeper, 2 centre-backs, 2 central midfield players and 2 centre-forwards. Everton 1, United 2.
Well, after all that, you're keeping the faith. I mean, it was another defeat against Tottenham last week. All kinds of statistics being rolled out. The worst.
Yeah, well, it's now. I mean, they're not. The fact that United have been relegated at least 3 times. The last time in the early 70s, and they're not. Well, at the moment, they're not going to be the worst Manchester United team. However, with regards to the number of points they've accrued after 25 games, it's the poorest performance in the Premier League years. And looking at some of these statistics, that they're the whole I suppose how people are working things out, but going by what is the expected points per game and the goals per game, that they'll get 44 points, which I would take now, which means that they would almost certainly be retain their status and membership of the Premier League.
And of course, the result for Tottenham, it was the first time they completed a league double over United since 1989-90, a season you were playing in, and a game at Old Trafford where you had 2 goals disallowed in December 1989, I seem to remember.
Well, I never have thought about doing anything about games that I was playing in, Matthew, but thanks for reminding me of that one.
Okay, let's move swiftly on. Saturday 3:00 games, Bournemouth versus Wolves.
Oh, Bournemouth, they must be dreaming of Champions League football at the moment. They're sitting 5th, 1 point behind Manchester City. They've scored 14 times in the last 5 games, with Ryan Christie now being a big influence for him, who has moved from perhaps a peripheral role as a wide player or a winger to a central midfield player who has been playing very well for them. Wolves now have conceded more penalties than any other side in the Premier League, 7, and only VAR stopped it from being 8 at Anfield, when it was the referee looked at the monitor and decided that there was no contact. I suppose some Wolves supporters and their fans and the manager might be disappointed that there wasn't a booking for a Liverpool player who went down quite easily. They've only 2 wins in 13 away games, Wolves. I don't see that improving at Bournemouth. Bournemouth 3, Wolves 1.
Okay, and now on to the aforementioned Arsenal, home to West Ham. Arsenal, as it stands, chasing down Liverpool.
Well, again, I mean, Arsenal are trying to continue to look to see what gains they can make, and they went away from some warm weather training and ended up losing the only recognised forward in Havertz, who badly damaged his hamstring jumping in front of the ball to try and stop a shot. So I don't know what the training that they've been doing now. In my day, that it would have been after Christmas. It would have been like on a countdown now, and the training would have been reduced in intensity because of these very reasons that number of games, particularly after Christmas, fatigue could be a problem, and therefore you want to reduce those chances of getting injuries. And both Manchester United and Arsenal have fallen foul of perhaps overexerting themselves in the training pitch. But they came up with 2 late goals to win at Leicester. Mikel Merino's 2 goals, he suggested that they would make up for not getting his wife a Valentine's Day present. But I don't think he's going to get away with that unless she is a big Gunners fan. West Ham have won once in the last 7 visits to this part of North London, and it was a 7-goal thriller in the last meeting. Arsenal 4, West Ham 1.
Well, if true, the kind of result Arsenal are going to need if they're going to keep any kind of pressure up on Liverpool. Staying in London, it's a London derby. It's Fulham against Crystal Palace.
Well, Fulham with 3 wins from the last 4 games in the Premier League. They may be eyeing opportunities to qualify for Europe. The win against Forest, incredibly, was their first at home at Craven Cottage in 2025 in the Premier League. They had 4 draws and 1 defeat since the 9th of December. And for me, I thought Palace's defeat at home to Everton was unexpected. However, their away form is much superior to their home form. Fulham 2, Crystal Palace 2.
Okay, and next up it's Ipswich against Tottenham, who could be going for 3 wins in a row.
Well, yeah, Postecoglou was being pleased with the performance, and I think the win against Manchester United, they probably didn't score as many goals as Postecoglou would have liked and perhaps should have. Maddison, of course, was influential for the period of time he was on the pitch, and indeed being optimistic enough to expect the goalkeeper to parry the ball and to score the only goal of the game. And the goalkeeper Vicario, who's been back from a lengthy injury, had a huge influence on the game. Played very well. Ipswich probably being inspired by getting a point away at Villa. But indeed, because we were playing with 10 men for the best part of an hour. And Delap scored his 11th Premier League goal of the season. Ipswich 1, Spurs 3.
So, Tottenham flying high, it would seem. And the last of the 3 o'clock games, it's struggling Southampton against a Brighton team who demolished Chelsea last time out.
Well, I've not mentioned Danny Welbeck for a while, but he was very instrumental in Brighton's second win in the week against Chelsea after their victory in the FA Cup. And he had 2 assists and also a very all-round impressive performance, along with his fellow forward Rutter. Southampton have only won once at home this season, which was a 1-0 win against Everton. And only Sheffield United in 24-25 have accrued fewer points after 25 Premier League games. Can't see that changing in this South Coast derby. Southampton 1, Brighton 3.
Okay, well that brings us to half time on this episode of Premier League Predictions. Myself and Brian are going to have a quick break, maybe do some warm weather training, change ends, and we'll be right back after this quick break. Welcome back to the second half of this week's edition of Premier League Predictions. We've reached the Saturday tea time game, an encounter which sees Aston Villa against the Chelsea team, who have been struggling somewhat of late.
Well, yeah, the defensive areas that have underpinned Chelsea's season were evident in their 3-0 defeat versus Brighton. clearly they're missing Nicholas Jackson, and with 717 completed passes, but they didn't manage a single shot at goal. Villa's home record is excellent, and Ollie Watkins is in fine scoring form. Aston Villa 2, Chelsea 0.
Painful listening for any Blues fans out there. Right, we move on to Sunday's game, and it's, Newcastle against Forest.
Well, Newcastle have lost 3 of their last 4 Premier League games, and according to reports, they were lucky to get away from City with just 0. They need to halt this slump in form. After 8 wins in the previous 10 Premier League games, Forest put in a bit of a sluggish performance at Craven Cottage, with only Chris Woods, who scored his 18th Premier League goal this season, earning any praise from Espirito Santo. Newcastle 2, Forest 2.
Okay. And the main event on Sunday is Manchester City Liverpool. Now we're looking at this game with not knowing what's happened in the midweek game at Villa Park. That could have a big bearing on the season, but the trip to City is never easy, regardless of what sort of form that they're in. So this could be a huge test for Liverpool, couldn't it?
Well, by saying that his side are looking tired, there's perhaps a psychological ploy by Liverpool coach Arne Slot, as they look to complete a Premier League double over City. Only Ian Rush with 15 goals has scored more goals for Liverpool against Manchester City, and then scored more goals. Scored the most goals, or more goals than Mo Salah. Ian Rush had scored 15. Mo Salah has now got 12. It seems that City were at return to their very best, particularly in the first half against Newcastle, with recent signing Omar Mamouche scoring a hat-trick in 13 minutes and 57 seconds, which I think is the 4th quickest in City's Premier League history. And despite fluctuating performances this season, I still think City are capable of performing well enough to challenge any top side, both domestically and European terms. City 2, Liverpool 1.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's very possible. Do you suspect the jitters at Anfield then, or are you just putting plans on?
I think that it's possibly more of a positive for City having that very good performance. Though, as I say, that they have been fluctuating, and Liverpool have not been playing as well as they did early on. But true champions win games and find a way to get results, and they've been doing that for a long time. But I think that City will be very keen to play against Liverpool on Sunday.
Something of a point to prove, then, you think? Yeah,
I think so. And you can't ever discount City putting in a challenge. It's highly unlikely, but you just never know. They're going to be influential on it, I think, anyway. And I think that Liverpool may have their first defeat in the Premier League away from home.
Well, we will see. And, that brings us to the end of this week's Premier League predictions. We'll wait with bated breath to see how many Brian gets wrong, or maybe how many he gets right. And we'll see you again on the next episode. Until then, bye for now.